Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is a Public Works Podcast. My name is Joseph Blackman, and today we got a real treat for you. Her name is Sherri McMahon, and she is the Environmental Compliance and Enforcement Administrator for the Public Works Department of the beautiful city of Las Vegas in sunny Nevada. Sherri, say what's up to everybody.
What's up, everybody? Coming live from Las Vegas.
Love it, love it. So Sherri, first off, I appreciate you because you were at my talk at Tri-State, and of course I always pitch the podcast, and you're like, you know what, I want to be on the show, and I appreciate you running up and giving me your card and volunteering to be on the show. Again, more people need to be able to tell their story, so thank you for doing that. But one thing I have is your title, Environmental Compliance and Enforcement Administrator. It's vague to a lot of people. So dive in deeper. Tell us exactly what your job title means and what it looks like for you.
So I've been with the city of Las Vegas for 13 and a half years. And as the administrator, I pretty much run all the environmental programs for the city to make sure that the city complies with what our requirements are, say with different regulatory agencies like state agencies or EPA or other people that we have permits with. But I also make sure that some of our programs like stormwater and wastewater pretreatment, I make sure that businesses and residents comply with what they should be doing on their part.
Okay. What does the day in the life of Sherri look like? You know, from the time you get to the office to the time you leave. Tell us what you're doing.
So that's crazy. I start at 6 a.m.
Okay.
Monday through Thursday. And I can honestly say, this is one of my quotes, I've never had the same day twice in 13 and a half years. So I'll have a schedule. Maybe I'm supposed to be in meetings representing the city and the city's interest, or I could be in staff meetings and have a schedule. And then we get a phone call that something needs to be investigated from public complaints hotline, or maybe city council has an issue. So yes, it's very crazy on a regular basis because I support all the departments, not just public works.
You know, that's interesting, Sherri. You know, when I think of Las Vegas, I think of these skyscrapers, you know, these big buildings, a lot of people coming in, coming out. And when I read the word environmental, I think of like trees and jungles and like manatees and like, you know, blue-backed, red-striped frogs and stuff. But that's nothing like Las Vegas. So talk to us kind of the environmental side. I know you're probably looking at more pollutants than people cutting down the trees. So how do you make that mindset shift of not necessarily attacking the green side, but more so the infrastructure side?
That's true. People think because we're a desert that we don't have, you know, forests or environmental issues that maybe California residents might have or other municipalities, maybe on the East Coast. However, we still do have environmental issues. We do have some public parks and some woods and trees. They're probably out of town up at Mount Charleston. But if you were talking about the core and the city, downtown Las Vegas, where City Hall and my offices, all of the valley here, when it rains, the stormwater is kind of like a big bowl. It all flushes and heads to the east and actually goes through the Las Vegas Wash, which is located in the city of Las Vegas, and ultimately Lake Mead. So if we're not doing in protection for stormwater, all the pollutants that go to the wash in the lake, they're not treated by our wastewater treatment plant. We don't have a combination facility like some municipalities. So everything, as they call it, the first flush. So anything that's on the streets, whether it be litter or sediment or oil and grease from vehicles or stuff in parking lots or people not picking up their leaves in their yard, or we have a whole pet waste program for public outreach about picking up after your pets. That all impacts the stormwater quality. So you want to make sure that not just residents, but any visitors. We have over 42 million visitors a year. I think it might be up to 45 million now coming to Las Vegas. Wow. So if you think about all the casinos flushing their toilets going to sewer and then walking up and down the strip and, you know, not picking up after themselves or throwing away cigarette butts or water bottles as they're walking. So we do have environmental issues. We have protected species that actually live within Las Vegas Valley. Yeah, so we have a multiple species habitat conservation program that helps mitigate development for, future build out and things like that. So we do have environmental issues. They're just not as similar to other communities, probably. Like we
Sure.
don't have an ocean with
Yeah.
straws or something like that. So, but yes,
Yeah.
we have air quality issues again, because it's a bowl. In the wintertime, the air quality can get heavy and sink and expose people. So we have to keep our air clean so visitors will still
Yeah.
want to be outside to recreate.
Sure. 42 million in and out, or that's the amount of visitor flow that you get. I think
Yes.
you would understand this, and I've seen this on, whether it's the fleet side. If nobody owns or takes ownership of a piece of equipment, they don't take care of that piece of equipment because it's somebody else's problem to deal with. Do you see that in a certain sense of that many visitors coming to Las Vegas annually, and that it's not their own city or their own backyard or own water system or refuge system, that they don't take care of it, or they don't have that, that sense of ownership to where they want to keep it up and keep it clean?
I would think that the visitors that do come, so just to clarify, the Las Vegas Strip where the major casinos are, that's actually in unincorporated Clark County. So there's a
Really?
misconception that that's the city of Las Vegas because of the branding. Everybody, says the city of Las Vegas or Vegas. So we do have our economic driver here in our municipality is in the downtown, which is also casino and resort driven. But I think that people do take pride in, like, I don't see people downtown when I'm down at lunch or walking around or driving around. I don't see people like purposely
Sure.
throwing stuff on the street. So, but I don't think that they always know where the borders of the municipalities end or begin. So to them, they're just here on vacation or for a conference or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think our public outreach messages, if they ever do have the televisions on, talk about those kinds of things. We have major flash flooding that we've put our flood program together to mitigate that. So way back in the day, there was some flooding on the Strip, for example, and probably the residents or that might be visiting or the visitors that come to town actually saw the flooding on the Strip because a lot of their casinos have underground garages. So yeah, that's when they'd be more apt to see something if something bad should happen and
Yeah.
our response to it. But the good news is the flood program over the last several decades has accommodated that with basins and different things so that that kind of environmental impact is not occurring anymore in the downtown area.
Yeah. Talk to us about navigating the dichotomy of you being kind of the the citation writer. When somebody sees you coming, they're like, oh, this can't be good.
Yes, especially if it's me, if I go out in the field, which
Oh,
I
yeah.
do regularly. So administrator might sound like I'm just pushing paper in the office all the time, but no, I'm out in the field regularly.
Yeah.
Usually by the time I have to come out in the field, it might be, more strict violations or potential administrative fees could be encountered by
Yeah.
the violator because it's been elevated. But mainly, we're really here just to educate businesses
Yeah.
and residents and visitors on what they can and can't do to stay environmental compliance because it is in the best interest, of everybody. Just like health and safety is a compliant thing, it needs to be a part of their natural daily practice.
Yeah. Now I had on a City of Phoenix environmental compliance manager, and we had the conversation of what she told to her crews, and it kind of educated them on working with the business owner instead of only being only being a part of it when there's something going wrong. What kind of advice do you give to those employees you might have who are out there in the streets all day, every day, to be able to be that asset to that business owner instead of being the person they should be scared of or hiding something from?
That's always been our program motto is that, we're educate and facilitate and help businesses or residents. So when we go there, the good thing is because our team supports all the departments, I have relationships, with business license or the building department or facilities or something like that. So if there is a problem, that we can assist or facilitate that by making a relationship between their problem and the appropriate department, we can help, I guess, push a problem through and get it solved for them, or advise them on who they need to contact to get whatever they need to get done.
Yeah. Yeah. Give us Sherri's career path. I always imagine a youngster listens to this episode and goes, I want to be Sherri when I grow up. How can they model their career after yours? Give us from high school all the way up until today, where you've been at and what you've done.
So way back in the day in high school, when I graduated, I wasn't exactly sure at that point what I wanted to do. So I went to university. You start taking all your basic classes. I really did like biology class was one of my favorite in high school. So I'm going to say if I had to pick, I would be more science-based career path. But then when I got to college, I was taking different classes. It was finally my junior year, and they said, you need to declare what your major is going to be. And I was like, well, I don't know. So I actually I again was taking science classes. I had some geology classes, biology classes. So I actually talked to our career advisor for our department. And he said, if I were you, I think I'd go into environmental career, because at that point it was the late 80s, almost early 90s, just when all the laws were becoming more prominent, like the Clean Air Act and Clean Water Act. He was actually a geology major. And he said, I kind of missed the boat on being a geologist. I guess back in the 80s, everybody was in the oil industry. And he said, if you would have asked me 10 years ago, I'd say become a geologist and you could work pretty much anywhere you want. He said, but now you've already missed that boat. All these environmental laws are coming in and they're not going to go away, and it's just going to become more stringent over time. So they offered environmental classes, but it wasn't an accredited program in environmental at that point. Now, if you go to a university or college, they're all about a variety of environmental programs. Back then it was, again, budding, trying to follow the compliance and industry. So that's how I ended up environmental. And then I actually got my first job with an engineering firm doing environmental. One of my professors had a class, it was hydrogeology, and there was graduate students in our bachelor's program that were doing extracurricular stuff, because again, it wasn't an accredited program. And one of the fellow students, he started a new office in Michigan and posted up on the board that they were hiring. So I actually applied, and I was the fourth person hired at that startup office with a major engineering firm. And I worked there for several years, and it was all underground storage tank removal, characterization, and remediation. The federal government had a program where they were trying to get everybody to get all the pollution and contamination out of the groundwater and soil from leaking underground storage tanks, which were all rusting out and leaking into the ground. So I pretty much worked all over the East Coast working on projects. And then that same firm was opening a local office here in Nevada for the Nevada Test Site Characterization Program. So if you ever seen Las Vegas, but out about an hour northwest is where they did all the nuclear testing. And during that time in the 40s and 50s, all the way up to the early 90s, when they were still doing above ground testing and below ground testing of nuclear weapons, they did not have to comply with environmental laws back then, because it was all about national protection. So they kind of had a get out of jail free card.
Interesting.
And right in the early 90s, again, all these environmental laws are coming out. They actually stopped doing above ground testing out there. And so now the federal government and the state was like, hey, now you need to come into compliance with everything that you're doing. So I was on the initial program where they were like characterizing where all the contamination was, where's all the sites, and kind of like the beginning of that whole program. So I worked on that program for 5 years. Then fast forward, I went to Clark County, which I said the strip's in Clark County. Thought I was going to do urban planning because that was my actual major. but with environmental components. And so I was like, okay, now I'm going to do planning. So doing planning, then we had a 200-year flood event over our closed landfill here in Las Vegas, and it breached the old landfill. It didn't have it had a proper cover at the time, but it wasn't like a sealed synthetic cover. It was all dirt based. So this erosion happened, and then it breached into the Las Vegas Wash, because it was right adjacent to it.
No.
So we had no environmental people for landfills or anything like that at the county. So they're like, hey, don't you have some experience doing environmental stuff before you came here? And actually that project was originally in their public works department, and they transferred it to the comprehensive planning department where I worked, because at the time it was EPA was very upset in the state, and there were sanctions for Clean Water Act and RCRA violations because of that. Then fast forward, I leave there, I go to Texas, then I do all the transportation for light rail and highways, doing the NEPA clearance. So that's a National Environmental Policy Act, where they're looking at all the impacts if you're going to build new infrastructure. So again, light rail or mixed use or highways, doing noise barrier modeling. So, and then just getting environmental clearance from the state agencies to have those infrastructure projects go in. Then I came back to Las Vegas and back in the private sector. Then I worked on, I was environmental compliance manager for the Hoover Dam Bypass Bridge. So I don't know if you saw the bridge over by the dam. There wasn't ever a bridge over there. So the only way back and forth for transportation or trucking routes was over the dam itself.
Yep.
After 9/11 and other terrorist activities, they're like, oh, we need to build another bridge, because what if something happens to the dam that's keeping back the water? Plus, it's the major route for trucking. So actually, from like Mexico to Canada is the I-11 route. It's a NAFTA corridor. So you have to go through Las Vegas and over the dam, unless you go all the way around, which adds, I think, like 2 or 3 hours time difference for truck haulers. And it's not as big of a thoroughfare, so they wanted to have some security and redundancy for transportation. And then, let's see, after that, then the economy tanked.
Good old recession.
Yeah, so this is about 2011.
Yeah.
And so then I'm working. I have 20 years of experience. I have a master's degree. I've worked all over the country. I can do all sorts of things. And then the economy goes down, and then I became unemployed for the first time in my career. That was a big eye opener and very stressful. So I was probably unemployed for 6 to 8 months. And then I got picked up at the city. So I actually, they had downsized with staffing at the time, but it was coming back up. And my predecessor had left the position to move to California. And they were looking at the time for an environmental officer position. So then I applied and got picked up by the city. Wow. Like I said, that was 13.5 years ago. And then I've taken over, again, it was just me at the beginning. Then I took over some other programs, and now I have 6 staff with these other programs that are doing, again, the inspections for the stormwater and pretreatment programs. And I've been here ever since.
Wow. I like it. Look at you. You've been all over the country and came back.
Oh, yes. I worked in Alaska for 6 months on a bridge project up there doing some environmental work. So when I say I've worked from Florida to Alaska, I've not been to Hawaii for work yet, but probably it's not going to happen. But I would say when I have talked to kids in junior high and high school about career paths, that's actually one of the things I really enjoy doing, is talking about, what's out there. And I can say it's very varied, and it gives you not the same thing every day. But the classes that I tell people, that you can take all the environmental classes or other things, but I would say if you can take a technical writing class, a lot of stuff has to do with, reports and writing applications and permits, or I've done grant writing. Like, you're always writing something. It's not just, Some people think, oh, we're just writing tickets. So it's not like parking enforcement or something like that.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to articulate. That's why I said public speaking is my second advice. Public speaking, because I'm always talking to people,
I'm
whether
sure.
it be residents or elected officials or the mayor or the city manager. You have to be able to articulate what you're trying to get across, but sometimes, it needs to be on layman's terms so that everybody understands what the issue is and how things can get resolved.
Sure. You talked about public speaking, you talked about technical writing. What would you say is the main, like the one skill set? Like if they only could pick up one skill set to be successful at what you currently do, what would that one skill set be?
I would probably say maybe not public speaking, but communication skills. Again, at all levels. So you have to be able to talk to people.
Okay. All right. It is story time. I need a story from Sherri when something went wrong under your watch, what you did to fix it, and then what lessons you learned from it to apply to your future career.
Oh, I'm so glad you asked this question. So a couple years ago, as part of our pre-treatment program, we had to conduct local limit studies. So we actually had to go in various manholes throughout our city infrastructure for sewer system and collect representative samples from non-industrial areas so that we could get a baseline to establish our water processing limits to comply with EPA requirements. So again, hadn't ran a pre-treatment program before, haven't taken local limit sampling, but we had a consultant that was helping us, but they aren't housed locally here in our community. They were out of state. So we decided that my staff and I were going to do this sampling. So there was it was supposed to take 4 days at various locations. So I worked with our sewer engineer. Hey, where would be some good representative over different decades? Like we need some residential. I need some maybe casino that's not industrial that would be representative of the downtown area. So I had this whole plan. And then reality hit. So we came across all these issues in the field. So one of the big issues were adult wipes that people use in the restrooms that flush in the toilet that say flushable.
Yeah.
Our sampler probes. So we have these samplers. So we open up these manholes. We have these like 3-foot tall samplers that we put down in the manholes. And we're going to take a 24-hour combination sample. So every hour or whatever we assign it, it would take a sample, take a sample, take a sample. And what we're finding is the probes that actually suck the water out of the sewer system kept getting wrapped up with these adult wipes around the probe. Literally, we'd pull up the hose and there would be a ball of wipes wrapped around these probes. Like an hour after we put it in the ground, and it's supposed to be there for 24 hours. So this 4-day incident, and there were some other issues. I would say I didn't realize we're in manholes, but we're not in manholes regularly. Not like our streets and sanitation department that's doing things. I didn't realize that some of our manholes have the rungs on the inside to actually enter it, and some don't. Some are shallow, some are deep. And so some of the flow is high, some of the flow is low. So anyway, the 4-day process ended up being 2.5 weeks, including some weekends. We had to go back to sewer planning and work with them. Hey, where else in this infrastructure? This spot didn't work, or the flow was too low, or the flow was too high. And just the probe kept bobbing and it wouldn't suck out the water. And so I would say that was kind of stressful, but again, this is what I tell my staff all the time. You have to be able to pivot. So when you're talking about people in careers, it is again, my day isn't scheduled as I thought it would be, and things don't go always as you thought it would be. You have to be able to pivot, have patience, and move forward in a new direction, and not just, just sit there and be like, now what do we do? So you have to be able to be resourceful, and ingenuity is important. So the positive out of all of that is after We finally got it, got all our samples, submitted our program to EPA, everything got approved. The consultant, the main person, and I actually did a presentation at a different conference. I have been to Tri-State and spoken there, but this particular presentation was for our state water agency, and it was kind of like pretreatment 101, what to do when you're a novice in the pretreatment program. And
I love
he
it.
talked about all the analytical and the chemistry and how do you determine what the wastewater plant can process or not. And my side of it was what not to do from a field perspective when you're doing a sampling program. Because we had a whole plan, a written plan, we had a whole strategy, a schedule. So the good news is it all worked out, and we got a presentation to hopefully educate other people on what to do when you're doing your local limit sampling for the first time.
You know, there's a law being passed about the manufacturers of those wipes taking off the label of flushable, meaning they can't package them and say flushable anymore.
I am so glad you brought this up, because guess what? I'm a visual person.
Okay.
So, I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah.
So, you know, it says flushables, right? Flushable wipes. So, as I said, I love educating the public. We do public outreach events all the time. And this is what I talk about. In one of our displays, we have various displays. This display has a wipe in it.
How long has that been in there? Yeah.
You see this wipe that's not disintegrated. Do you want to take a guess at how long this one has been in here?
Let's see. I would say this became a problem 7 years, so probably 5 years.
Oh, you should have stuck with 7, because look what happened.
July 2018.
July 2018, we put that in there. Now, I can honestly say I went to a conference a couple years ago in Oregon about pretreatment, and it was a 3-day conference. They had various breakout sessions. One of the sessions was on wipes. It was that big of a deal nationally within the pretreatment program and within our, collection system, that people just don't realize the extent of it. And so, like I said, my story about our local limits, like if that's just messing with my local limit sampling, once it gets to our wastewater treatment plant at the very first stage, it's breaking our equipment, it's tying up stuff. But we don't just focus on wipes. When we do education, we talk about like dental floss and all sorts of things that people, so we have different different jugs. We also have cotton balls, paper towels, other things. But this actual wipe that I brought in was actually in our bathroom at work with one of my employees that was new. And I was like, are you kidding me right now? I cannot have these wipes. But this particular brand, I'm not promoting anything, but she did her own experiment to prove to me. So she brought in a jar. This brand was actually disintegrated like toilet paper does.
Really?
So there are some out there, but that's when we're talking in the public, that's what they usually say. Well, if it says flushable, why is that? And so the guy that gave the presentation in Oregon, he's like a national promoter of taking the flushable off the label.
Sure. I got to talk to that guy.
Going to Washington, D.C. and talking to different bills that are being passed, because people don't understand. There's even issues with certain toilet paper is so thick and is a very popular brand. And when we ever have people that call and talk about different issues, I'm not going to say the brand, but there is a brand out there that seems to clog systems because it's very thick and absorbent. I get it. People want to stay clean. But we're in this conference in the breakout session. They were asking different people, what would you want to do to get the word out there? And so at the time, that was October before the Super Bowl was here in Las Vegas.
Oh, okay.
Years ago. And I said, if I could get my 30 seconds of fame, I was like, I don't want a billboard. I want the live feed at the Super Bowl. And I can either stand outside the stadium or whatever and talk about what is flushable and what is not flushable in regards to wipes. And everybody in the class was laughing. I go, the Super Bowl's around the world. I have viewers from around the world watching this. It is such a captive audience. I couldn't afford a commercial, but if I could, and everybody was laughing. And guess what happened, Joseph? The Super Bowl comes, fast forward February. I'm not going to say a brand name, but there was a brand name sponsor that gave a commercial during the Super Bowl for flushable wipes. in promoting flushable wipes, and I could
Yeah.
not believe it. And then everybody was
Wasn't
laughing.
it dude wipes?
It was, but I'm not
Yeah,
going to say
I know
it.
you can't say. I can though. I can.
Yes. So you
Yeah.
saw the commercial.
Oh yeah. I
Exactly.
mean, yeah. I mean, who else would put an ad on the Super Bowl besides dude wipes?
Right.
They're everywhere.
This is what I said. You can use all the wipes you want. Just don't put them in the toilet.
Yeah.
Dispose of them. Pretend you're on septic at your house and you had to pay if there was a backup or something.
And it's
more responsible when they know what the infrastructure, what it does to the infrastructure, I think, and would be more cognizant about it if it affected them personally. They just put in the toilet and flush it and they don't care. So
sure. And you say adult wipes, like I think a lot more of the problem is baby wipes. I mean, I have a 8-month-old baby and we use wipes all day, every day with Low Man. I mean, it's, but we take the wipe and we put it in the diaper.
That's what I would do.
Chuck it. Yeah. It's not like we take a loose wipe and throw it in the toilet. We take the wipe because we're cleaning him up. His diaper's right there. He's got the, the whatever in the diaper. So we put that in the diaper and then we throw it away.
I would think parents are more cognizant about it, and it's part of the process, like you said, where the diaper's there and the toilet's not close by.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
I do think it's adults. I even asked some of my employees that are, I'll say, when did this become a man thing? Like,
I was going to speak to that. So dude wipes, I have dude wipes, but the thing is with dude wipes, I'm only wiping like sweat, like, the hot areas, and I'm not wiping after, you go. It's more so like I'm done playing basketball. Let's say I'm working out in the yard or in the garage. I'll grip the dude wipes out and like, kind of not freshen up, but if I got to go pick my daughter up from school or something, I'll use the dude wipes to kind of just get yourself together and then get back in action. And those wipes don't go in the toilet. They go in the trash.
Right. Everybody has a trash can next to their toilet usually. So
yes. Yeah. But I have been to people's houses where, and hate to say it, but like you'll see like a nice little feminine looking, a canister or a wipe holder, or they put the covers over tissue boxes so it looks better than a tissue box. You'll see that, but you'll see the wipes in there, and it's like, wait, why is this next to the toilet? There's toilet paper here, but you can tell a lot of people use the wipes after they go number 2, and then they just flush it. So it's interesting, like like how people use them. I think if we could change not the stigma, but there's just a process of how people use them and use them more for like how I use them, which is after a sport or after working out in the yard instead of going, after I use the bathroom. Like that can change things a lot.
Yes. It's all about the mindset, changing the mindset practice of not flush, throw away.
Yeah. And
that would be my billboard.
Okay. So thank you for answering.
I don't want a billboard. I want a Super Bowl commercial.
No, we can get you one for the 2 easy payments of $7 million for sure.
Yes.
You guys got the budget. All right, Sherri, next question for you. You've been doing this for X amount of years. You've been in the industry for X amount of years.
Decades.
Yeah. You got some time under your belt, which is a beautiful thing. So thank you for your service. But what do you do year after year to keep yourself fresh? What do you do intentionally that puts new information into your brain that helps you operate in 2025, 2026 versus leaning on what you learned back in, you look like you're 21 years old back in the 90s, 2000s.
I would have to say, like, the conference that you were at, the Tri-State Conference, it brings together Nevada, California, and Arizona. So you get a different flair of what's going on in different municipalities. That's our big conference that we go to on an annual basis. We also have an internal conference for city employees from the leadership side. So I was so excited at Tri-State, and I guess they've done that before, but I hadn't noticed it over the last 10 years where, like, you spoke, and I'll call the leadership track besides the technical tracks that I went to on the other days. So I thought that was awesome because yes, you can get stagnant just learning technical. And like you said, I could be the speaker. I've been the speaker. Like I, can mentor other people on things to do or not do, but to stay fresh and open-minded is to go to the leadership tracks, either at that kind of conference or internally, to talk about, customer relations or leadership styles, or just take you out of the setting of your natural everyday to day, just to think about things from a different perspective. In general, it doesn't really matter about what industry or what your job is, just how you interact with people or customers or your team. So
Yeah.
I try to do those kinds of things too.
Sure. I'm biased towards video and producing video that can attract people to the industry. And when I say people, meaning those who are coming out of high school, college, instead of them going into tech or like crypto or or even to the services, they can get into the public works industry.
Right.
Let's say we had a camera crew. It's a reality show. It's the Sherri McMahon show. We're following you around. What would you want to depict, for that younger generation, so they can go, I want to be what Sherri is. I want to do what Sherri does. What would you want to depict in that day or that week on your reality show that would look cool and attractive for somebody to want to hop in the industry?
So it's funny you should say that. One of my supervisors on my team just asked, we have a education and public outreach booth that we have, and next month is the construction career day, and it's usually in a parking lot at the university, and we have a tent and we talk about obviously important things like not flushing this, but we talk about career paths, and these are high school age, and some junior high schools send students there to talk about different career opportunities in construction or public works. We actually have one of our street sweepers with the truck out there, and so they can talk to my staff of inspectors. But if I was going to say, you should go environmental, because I have to say it's, again, interesting. Every day is a new day, so you're not bored. So I don't know if you're an accountant or you're a programmer, where all the money is, like, oh, I want to go do this because they're about the money. It's not necessarily about the money, but I think it's, to me, I tell people all the time, I don't have kids or grandkids, so I'm not doing this for my family, but I'm doing it for the Las Vegas community or United States or the world for that matter. Like, it's not going to go away. Like, if you want to have a planet here and have water and be able to flush your toilet and do those, have good air quality so you can breathe for your kids or their kids, somebody has to do it. And I think it's just as honorable as, I know police and fire always get the props, but I think environmental is important too, because you can't do those other jobs if people can't survive.
Yeah. I always like to ask the question on the proverbial bat line. Like, you probably have friends in the community, maybe even family in the community. And when somebody has the number of somebody who works for the city, they always feel like they can call them and get things done or ask questions of what's going on. So what would you say is the most frequent call or text message that you might get from your personal network about maybe public works, water, environment that somebody would want to know about, or they might want their tree removed or their neighbors pissing them off? Like, what's the most frequent text?
I get a frequent thing about water line breaks in the street.
Oh.
Somebody's driving into their neighborhood or driving somewhere, and there's a water fountain coming out of the street or out of a hydrant or out of something that's in the city.
Sherri, it's your problem. Fix it.
Hey, there's this water pipe or there's this big spout on this road or whatever right by my neighborhood. Do you know what's going on there? Or can you fix this? I'm like, no, I can't fix it, but I'll report it to the agencies that I do know. And because I've lived in Las Vegas for over 3 decades and worked in the environmental industry, regardless of what agency or private or public sector, you develop relationships. It is a really small community. My hometown was less than 20,000 people. I feel like our Las Vegas Valley in the city is like a small town. Like, everybody knows everybody. You still see people, even though there's millions of people. It is still small town mentality. Not everybody works on the strip. There's actually people that live out in the suburbs. That misconception. Yes, we have schools, we have churches, we have parks. So yes, people are always calling about some unique thing that's happening in their neighborhood and they want to
Yeah,
know who they should call or how can they report it.
that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
You spoke on misconceptions. Let's say you're at a dinner party, right? And of course, the question always comes up. You're chatting somebody up, and they say, "Sherri, so what do you do?" And you tell them, I am the environmental compliance and enforcement administrator for City of Las Vegas. What do you think they think? What are some of the biggest misconceptions about what you do?
I can tell you exactly. And it even happens sometimes with coworkers and the public or anybody that I talk to. So after you say what you do or what your title is, they're like, oh, you're an environmentalist. And I'm like, no,
Yeah,
I'm not an environmentalist.
you're a tree hugger, right? Isn't that what?
Yes, I'm not going to strap myself to a tree that they're trying to cut down. I'm not going to put spikes everywhere. I'm not going to lay down in the street so heavy equipment can't pass by. I was like, those are all, noble things that people do, but I think there's better approaches. So this is how I describe it. I said, I take that offensively. Do not call me an environmentalist. It's like, to me, it sounds very extreme and very crazy. I said, do you know the difference between being feminine and a feminist? Like, you could be feminine. You don't have to be an extremist. Like, I'm not going to go, fall on the sword about this issue.
Yeah.
I want to make things better. I want to protect the environment. So I tell people I'm more on the feminine side of feminists, not an extremist. Like, I'm more reality and common sense on how we can accomplish things and still protect the planet.
Sure. I like it. I like that comparison you made. All right. I always like to leave a space on the show for you to thank mentors that you had along your journey. And then I want you to give a pep talk and a word of wisdom and inspiration and motivation to those with your same position across the country.
I would say I haven't really had a lot of environmental mentors. So here at the city or other places, like when I started, I'm like a team of one. When I came on. So I haven't really had people that I could look up to from a technical perspective. I guess I've just kind of gleaned it over the decades of just doing the job and figuring it out. Because I'll tell you, just back when I said in Michigan, right out of school, there was no internet resources. There was no AI. Like, hey, I got to go do this gas station work and I got to do this report and whatever. Like, there weren't resources available. So you kind of like work with coworkers, but at that time it was still like budding industry. So you kind of had to figure it out as you go. But if I had to say for mentoring, from a leadership perspective, so my current boss and my previous boss who just got promoted a month ago and our director are all women. So this is probably the first time in my career where I've had a strong women presence. Like, even our mayor's a woman, most of our council's women. So women power in looking at leadership more than technical side. I pretty much have a lot of the technical side, but I can honestly say even things pop up today that is something that I haven't done before. So there are, again, internet and resources out there, and I have developed relationships. So there's people in the industry that I can call and ask questions to, like bounce something off another agency or a consultant or another firm or something like that. So really networking relationships has been probably my mentoring from a technical side, and then, management and leadership.
Sure. And what do you say to those who are also environmental compliance administrators across the country? What do you say to keep them motivated, keep them inspired?
I think sometimes I feel like it's a thankless job by doing what we do. So you just got to keep pushing, because you have to believe that you're making a difference. Because you might not always, because I'm going to say environmental has always been like ancillary to not on the forefront. It's always like a side thing or an extra thing or something like that. So you have to know that you're making a difference and seeing it, that, like I said, people can drink clean water, people can breathe, people can do things like have development that's responsible and sustainable.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right, Sherry. The most important question you're going to be asked in your whole career. Let's say I am coming to Las Vegas, and we're not talking the strip. I'm coming to Las Vegas. And I text you ahead of time. I say, Sherry, send me to the place where I can get the best burger in town. Where are you going to send me?
I'm kind of privy to the downtown area because that's where I eat a lot of my lunch. Holsteins
Holsteins. Okay.
they just moved downtown. They actually used to be at the Cosmopolitan. No,
Uh-huh.
Aria. They were at one of the major strip properties. No, it was Cosmopolitan. And they've moved to the downtown in the last maybe 6 months.
Okay.
And now it's close by for lunch, but they have all sorts of really juicy, some exotic, some standard burgers, but I'm really partial to their onion rings.
Okay. Okay. I like your style, Sherry. I like your style.
And they have special milkshakes, adult milkshakes.
Adult. Oh,
Can't have those at lunch, but if you come down for a happy hour or after hours,
yeah.
they have adult milkshakes too.
I like it. I like it. Sherry, thank you for hopping on the podcast today. Thank you for sharing your wealth of information and knowledge with us. To all the listeners out there, make sure you share this with somebody who you think needs to hear it. Sherry, any final words before we get out of here?
I just appreciate this opportunity, Joseph, because like I said, I feel environmental is not always the horse and the first horse in the race. It's the dark horse, but it's always a sure bet.
Yeah, love it. I love that there. All right, Sherry. Well, thank you for hopping on the show. This has been the Public Works Podcast, and thank you everybody for tuning in.